This is Michael Riccards, and I'm back here with Mike Presutti. Mike, I asked the question of, it seems to me that many of the Democrats and Republicans have run out of ideas how to deal with the economic problems. So what do? They go back to Franklin Roosevelt, whom both have declared really his ideas are out of date, and all of a sudden they're using old New Deal arguments. One of the things that they will do, undoubtedly, is they'll begin building buildings at a faster rate, like the WPA did during the New Deal. I'm surprised we don't see the CCC pretty soon. But if that happens, aren't the people like you who really are interested in Homeland Security going to really find that there's a lot more interest again in the question of internal security?
Michael, I think security doesn't really play to a specific political party, nor does it really look to economics. I believe it really is a threat no matter how good or bad we're doing. If we're doing good, people want to take us down. If we're doing poorly, then we're weak and then we become vulnerable. Going back to FDR, I just don't think that's the right model.
You had a tough time with that the first time, huh?
I sure did. I wasn't around, though, Michael, of course, but what I've read about it, I would disagree with almost, I'd say 75, 80% of the alphabet soup, the CCC and the AAA and the RCA and every other acronym you can possibly imagine. And I think today what we're really looking at is two political parties that are more alike than people would like to think. And I think FDR would be proud because I think he pulled both parties towards the left, towards statism. And I think that might be something that goes away forever, unfortunately. And I wrote a column a few years ago about Alexander Hamilton, who was our first Treasury Secretary, and Albert Gallatin, who was Thomas Jefferson's Treasury Secretary. And it came about because the Brookings Institute had a project called the Hamilton Project. Right. And Robert Rubin, of course, the Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, and John Snow, the Treasury Secretary under George Bush at the time, were arguing what would Alexander Hamilton be today? Would he be a Democrat or a Republican? And my office in downtown Manhattan is not far from Trinity Church. And, you know, I walk by the yard almost every day, the old cemetery that's alongside Trinity Church. It's a beautiful church and a beautiful cemetery. And, you know, I looked down to my right on a path and I saw the crypt of Albert Gallatin. And I wondered that here we are fighting for the mantle of Alexander Hamilton, right? Two political parties fighting to have the mantle of Alexander Hamilton, and they're ignoring Albert Gallatin, who had a philosophy that was diametrically opposed to Hamilton at the time. He was the person who wrestled the Ways and Means Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, to have some type of oversight in Congress against the president. And he was an individualist, and he's certainly a free market person. He cut taxes, and took care of Hamilton and Wilcox deficit, and basically helped us win the second war, or second revolution rather, the War of 1812.
Now, there aren't too many businessmen who are interested in first principles, which is basically political philosophy by another name. How did you get interested in really thinking about first principles, of thinking about the Founding Fathers and the men and women who influenced the Founding Fathers?
Yeah, Michael, it's a difficult question. I grew up in a blue-collar family, and my parents stressed education to us. They didn't go to college. As a matter of fact, my dad didn't get out of high school, but he insisted that we go to school. And we learned a lot at home. You know, he had encyclopedias, we read them, and he also put in us that we should do something for our community. And if we have the ability to write or articulate something, then we have a responsibility to share it. And first principles, our founders' first principles, I think are ideals. And I'm certainly I'm a realist. I'm a practical guy. I own a business, and I know what needs to be done inside of business parameters. But there's always something there that tells us that, or tells me at least, that you have to look to some type of model. You have to look even past the founders. You look into the Greek and the Roman era, especially the Romans. The similarities between our country and the Roman Empire are very, very similar in many, many ways. And I think anyone who's in business, anyone who has the ability to affect the public, should have a basic understanding of history, or else we're just a ship bobbing along on the water somewhere with no compass. And I think history gives us that compass.
Which of these founding fathers most influenced you as you go back and think about them?
That's fairly simple for me. It would be Thomas Paine.
Thomas Paine?
Thomas Paine, yes. Thomas Paine was very courageous. Of course, he wrote The Crisis for George Washington, which would today be probably military propaganda to try to incite the masses to get behind the effort, because there was an effort, of course, not to go along with the revolution, and The Crisis was that. But this is a very courageous guy who later on, of course, went to France and got caught up in the French Revolution and became ostracized by the the Federalists at the time, Governor Morris and John Adams, and was actually imprisoned. And it wasn't until Monroe had gone over to France and got his extradition and got him out of there and again, his reputation had been marred. Matter of fact, Theodore Roosevelt, if I recall, wrote a book on Governor Morris, and in that book called Thomas Paine, I believe, a little filthy bastard, and that stuck. So, Thomas Paine, one of our really an unsung hero and often forgotten, and so he would be my.
Didn't he live here in New Jersey?
Yeah, he lived Bordentown, not far.
He lived in
absolutely,
here?
Bordentown, absolutely.
He's buried in England now.
He was actually buried upstate in New Rochelle, and then his remains, Michael, an incredible story. The stuff that movies would be made out of.
Let's come back to a discussion of Thomas Paine and others in a moment.